like to be hated, to be faded behind blue eyes. And if I swallow anything.
Hey guys, what's up? Magic Bard here, and we've got a pretty exciting tutorial to go over on this one. What really inspired me was the Dark Tower trailer that I saw the other day with the Gunslinger, Idris Elba. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Epic actor who's starting to make a lot of video or movies and films lately. So I'm pumped to see that going on, and really excited for this movie. I'm a huge fan of Stephen King, so this one should be fun to watch. And yeah, I wanted to try out this effect, show you guys kind of how I would do it as a visual effects artist. And yeah, that's what we're gonna get into. So I'm going to break this tutorial up into 3 parts: how to load the gun while the cartridge is spinning, how to catch bullets in the air, and a basic how to make a still image move, which is the fly. So with that being said, if you're new to my channel, please subscribe and click the bell icon next to the subscribe button to be notified when my future videos are released, so you'll be the first to get started on epic visual effects. And click the like button if this video helps you at all. With that being said, let's get into the tutorial. Alright, so for the first effect, let's try this loading the gun while the cartridge is spinning. So I have my shot, which is basically just my actor Ben spinning the cartridge of the revolver, okay? And his left hand is pretending to let go, or is pretending to load some bullets into the cartridge. Now he has no bullets, we're gonna add in some fake ones. So I use a plugin called Element 3D, which you guys can download from Videocopilot.net. If you don't want to purchase that plugin, you can also do this effect with PNG files. So you would need to get a PNG file of a bullet. So first things first, you have your shot, and I just called this one background. Okay, so what you're going to do is track the revolver. So I would say the best thing to track here would be probably this point right here. So we're gonna, because this is pre-composed, I'm gonna have to open this and track it. So you'll see what I tracked, and that was the corner of the release button for the cartridge. So what you're gonna do is, with your layer selected, click on track motion, okay, and then put your tracker right on a solid contrast image. So I have some brights and I have some darker parts of the gun selected right here. And then what you're going to do is line up the playhead right before it gets blurry, so right about there. And then I'm going to analyze backwards. So right about there, and I'm fine. Maybe one more frame. Okay, good. And then what you're going to do is go to Layer, New, Null Object. Okay, and you can size down this null, and then go to Edit Target, select Null 7, that's my new null object, and then Apply. So you're going to apply the tracking data to the null, press U on your keyboard to check out your keyframes, and yes, they all look good. Now we're moving on to the next step. So I'm just going to delete this for now, just because I already did the tracking. So we have our background layer tracked with our null, and you can see that because it is stuck to the release button. And now the next thing we need to do is create a matte for our cartridge. So take your background layer and duplicate it by pressing Command D or Control D if you're on a Windows, and then go to Layer, New, Solid, and we'll make it a white solid for now. And then let's turn that white solid off, just so we can see our layer underneath it, which is our background 2 layer. And let's call this background 2 layer cartridge. And then with your white solid layer selected, select the pen tool and create a mat around the cartridge. Okay, and we can turn our white solid back on and then connect that to the null. So we're going to use this pick whip parent button, click, hold, drag it over to the null, and good. Now we are stuck to our null. So that white solid should be stuck to it, which it is. And then we could trim that guy down to where our null is. Okay guys, we're looking good so far. Now what I want you to do is let's feather this a bit. So hit MM on your keyboard to open up your mask feather, and then maybe do 10. No, that's way too much. Do 5. Even less. I'll do 2. Okay, that's good for that. Now what we're going to do is, with your cartridge layer selected, go to your track mat and hit alpha mat. So we want to use the mat that we just created with the white solid, and we'll alpha mat that. So now when we put in bullets, we'll have a cartridge on top of that. So now let's get into the element 3D part. So we're going to go to layer, new, solid, and we'll call this one bullet. Once you've downloaded Element 3D from Videocopilot.net, go into your effects and presets, type in element, and drag that onto your solid. And we are going to create the bullets. So go to scene setup, and then you're going to import a bullet that you can download in the description. And when you import a object, it has to be a .obj file. So we've got that, our 45 bullet, import 3D object, and now we've got that guy in here. Cool, doing good so far. Now let's paint it up. And we're going to add some materials to it. So let's go with some metal, maybe a gold bullet with a copper shell, and then a brighter primer. So we'll go with a brushed metal primer. Okay, good for me. So here's our bullet. We'll turn our lights to cinema or dramatic lighting, and we're looking good. Let's press OK. Okay, so we got our bullet in here. Go to group 1, which is where our bullet is, and particle look. Let's turn the size down because that's a huge bullet. We don't need it that big. Maybe about this size is good. Let's time out to see when he opens up his thumb. Right about there, that's where the bullet's going to start, so we can trim down the bullet to there. Let's change the color so we can see it a little better to green. And we are going to animate the bullet from his hand into the cartridge. So let's do that by going into the particle replicator. And we're going to mess with the X and Y position and the rotation. So let's find our rotation, replicator rotation, and rotate the X downwards. And put the position of the ending point right about here, X right about there. So that's where this is where we want the bullet to end. So we're going to keyframe all of our parameters that we're going to end up moving. So we'll keyframe the position, XY, position X, and I believe not the Y, that won't matter. The Z rotation, yeah. So we'll keyframe the Z rotation as well. All right. Now press U to open up our keyframes, see where they are, and it will end at about here. So this is when the bullet will get into the cartridge. So now let's bring our bullet to the starting point, which is up into his hand. So just move it until it looks like it's in his fist. Okay, so right about there looks good. Now let's rotate it right here and right there, so it kind of fits in there. Okay, good. So it's going to drop out of his hand into the cartridge. Now at about halfway, I'm going to want it to be going more into the cartridge like that. And then in there. So actually here I'm going to bring it over, move it over on the x-axis a little bit. So let's see how that looks. It'll drop in there and kind of get caught. Cool. Okay, and you guys can mess with the position on this to really get it right, make it look like it's going into the cartridge, and then once it's in right there, then we could kind of rotate it, move it around. So here I'd go like here and bring up the Y a little bit. All right, so now let's take our cartridge and our matte layer and bring it above our bullet, so it looks like our bullet is actually inside of the cartridge. All right, so that looks good like that. Now what we need to do is create a matte around his thumb, and I'm actually going to start the bullet right here. So I trim down the layer right about there. And I'm actually going to bring the bullet a bit higher. So maybe right about here. So duplicate your background layer, Command D, bring it up here above your cartridge. And what we're going to do is trim that down to where the bullet is trimmed. And use your pen tool to make a mask around the thumb. Okay, a rough mask looks good to me. Press M to open up the mask path. Keyframe that, and we're going to keyframe the thumb all the way to the end, which is right about here of your null object. So just start the keyframe, page up, page down, and move that mask around. Alright, cool. So that's my mask of the thumb, and I also renamed it thumb. And then what we can do is, with our bullet layer selected, I don't like that it's kind of sticking out right there, so I'll just bring up the Y position until it's hidden. And I'll move over the X as well. So he opens his hand and it goes in. Next thing is, let's trim down this bullet because we don't want it to just stick there the whole time. So it moves around the chamber, and right where it ends right there, we'll trim it down. And then I'll show you how to make it look like it's going around in a second. Right now, let's make a shadow for the bullet. So we'll go to Layer, New, Solid, and make a black shadow solid, black solid for the shadow. And let's turn it off for now so it's not in the way. Trim it down. And the shadow will last as long as the bullet is near his hand. So 1 frame, 2 frame, 3 frames, and that'll be it. So that's where the shadow will die off. So it's about a 1, 2, 3 frame shadow. So with the shadow selected, let's call it bullet shadow for now. Put it under the bullet, and using the pen tool, we'll create a shadow right on his hand. And now we can reveal the layer by clicking on that little eye tool. Press MM to open up the feathering. Let's feather this guy out. Maybe, no, 25 is too much. 15. Okay. Press T for the opacity, and let's drop that down as well. So 50% looks good to me. And we're going to keyframe this. So press M to open up our mask path, keyframe, and page down, and just kind of move this mask around until it looks about right. Okay, good. So now we have a bullet. We have a shadow that's keyframed in there, looking better. Now what we want to do is make it look like the bullet is rotating around the revolver once it is gone. Okay, so we're going to add a new solid again. And let's use this eyedropper tool and click on the bottom of our bullet here, and that's what we will use for the bullet going around our cartridge. Let's turn off the eye and create a circle. A nice small circle. And what we're going to do is find where our anchor point is. So let's make the layer visible again. Then what we're going to do is click on this anchor point tool and bring him all the way in the middle of our circle. Okay, now let's zoom in here. And what we're going to do is make this a 3D object. So we'll go and check on the 3D box right here for the layer. And then let's rotate it. And make it not exactly flat like that, but just about close to it. And then let's bring it down into space. Maybe make it a little bit smaller. And until it looks like about the same size as our bullet. So we're going to put it right at our next position of where the bullet would be. So right about right there. And then I'll bring the playhead to where our bullet ends. And then this is where we will keyframe this bullet going around. Okay, so once you've keyframed your bullet going around in circles, you can trim it down to where our null object ends, because that's when things get blurry and our cartridge goes out of frame. And go to your motion blur and turn the motion blur on for this layer. Okay, so that way it'll blur up as it's going around the cartridge, alright? And then make sure your motion blur is checked up here too. This will enable the motion blur of all the layers, right? So once we've got that, that's the crux of this effect. I would also turn the motion blur on for this bullet. So let's zoom out to see it. And click on the layer, and you can click on the motion blur right here, which will turn it on. Okay, so then once you've got your motion blur turned on for your bullet and your bullet going around the cartridge, you pretty much got this one all covered. Now all you have to do is duplicate your bullet shadow, and then every time he opens up his thumb, another bullet will come out. And that will look like this. Okay, so I have my bullet, I have my bullet shadow, and then I have my bullet revolving or rotating around the cartridge. And then as that one is rotating, I have another bullet coming out. And let's look at that. Okay, so I have my other bullet coming out. I have my bullet shadow, which is right here. And then I have that one also rotating around the cartridge. Okay? And then I have my third one. So all you have to do is once you do the animation of the bullet once, just duplicate it and keep going. So now let's jump into the next effect, which is catching the bullets in the air, or loading the gun in the air. So on this one, let's open it up to see what we've got here. So fairly simple. What you're going to do is you're going to, using Element 3D, do the same thing we did on that last one, where you're going to go into Layer, New, Solid, and then we'll call this the three bullet drop. Go into Element 3D, drop it onto the solid, and go to Scene Setup. Okay, you're going to import your bullet, the same one we did, 45.obj, and you're going to color it, or add some shades to it. We'll go to Metal, add our gold grunge, and we'll make this one a different color just for looks, and then our primer. Okay, so we've got our bullet here. Press OK. And then what you're going, actually I forgot one step. In Scene Setup, you're going to duplicate this because we want 3 bullets, as you see right here. So you're going to right click on the 45, duplicate model, and you're going to uncheck the 1 and check the 2. So you're adding this bullet on group 2. Do that one more time. So duplicate model, and we're going to have a third one. So we have group 1 up here. Put this one on group 2, and our third one will go on group 3. Okay, so now we have 3 bullets. We're going to press OK. So for now, I'm just going to break down the particle size to about 2. Okay. Group 2, I'll do the same thing. Particle look, size 2. Group 3, which is the bullet in the front. Particle size or particle look, particle size 2. Okay, so now we've got all 3, and now let's kind of break them up. Go to the particle replicator, and with the X selected, I'll drag this guy. So third one out over there, and then our group 1 will be on the far left. So particle replicator, move the X over. Okay, position X. And now what we can do is move all 3 of these at once, and we don't have to use the position XY. We can go into here, the world transform, and this will move the all 3 bullets at once. So as we go to world position XY, we can drag this up and down. What you're going to do is keyframe it the same way that I keyframe these guys. So keyframe it from the top. So bring the Y all the way up here, keyframe, drag it down, and then you're going to keyframe that guy down and kind of follow his eyes going down. All right. So let me just delete this now since I already made that. I made the bullets right here. And then what I did was I duplicated the layer with the actor on it. So press Command D. Brought the playhead to where I thought the cartridge would meet the bullets. And drag that on top. Created a mask by using the pen tool around the gun. And then what I did was I trimmed my clip down to where I only need that mask. So it was only a couple of frames. And then I keyframed the mask. So I hit M, and you can see my keyframes right here as I keyframed the mask path as my gun moved. Okay? And then I kind of fit my gun over my bullets. And that effect was as simple as that. Okay? So basically all you have is your one layer, your element 3D layer with all 3 bullets coming down, and then your cartridge layer on top of that, which will cover up the bullets as he is loading it in the air. Cool. And now for the last part, making a PNG file move, or our fly composition, how we made that one move. So all I really did here was I had this PNG file of a fly, and I could show you that right here, my fly.png. So it's just a still image. I took that, I masked it out. So let's look at that, how I did that. So I'll go down here to my fly. I have a fly shadow, and I created a bunch of elements with my fly. So I shot my desk handheld, and I had to go into my tracker controls, track motion, and I tracked the corner of the desk and then applied that tracking data to the null object. So same as the last part that we did. And you can see that right here, my tracking data for the position. So once I put the fly onto the table, I just parented the fly to the null. Okay, and then you could see the layers I have with the fly. So I have my 2 wings. I have my left wing and my right wing. And basically all I did for that was masked out each wing. So I have my right wing and my left wing. And then what I did was I pressed R for my rotation. You right click on the stopwatch, and then in the expressions type in wiggle parentheses 30 comma 10. So that means 30 times a second my rotation will wiggle 10 pixels. And then with that expression, I have this moving wing. And I did that for both of the wings, right? So I have these two moving wings. Then what I did was I have my fly body comp with its 4 legs, and then I masked out his 2 legs up front, and then created a left leg and a right leg. And then what I did with these was left and right. I'll press U to show you my keyframes here. I moved his arms back and forth because you know how flies like to and rub their hands together like that. So we did a little bit of that as well. And that's how I made the moving fly. Of course, we had to add a shadow onto the desk. So that was my moving fly right there. And then guys, that's basically it. So we have our how to load a gun inside of a spinning cartridge, how to load a gun while bullets are flying in the air, and also how to animate a PNG file. A couple of visual effects tactics you now know and can utilize in the future. A little bit of Element 3D, which I highly recommend you purchase on Videocopilot.net. I love this plugin. If you ever want to work with 3D elements and you don't want to purchase 3ds Max or Maya or something like that, and you want to do everything in After Effects, Element 3D is a great plugin for that. I highly recommend it, and this is not an advertisement. I just love the plugin and Videocopilot stuff. So definitely check that out. I hope this tutorial helped. If it did, please leave a like, and if you want to learn a certain effect, let me know in the comments. I'd love to help out as much as I can. You can also follow me on social media at Magic Bard on Facebook and Instagram. I'm always posting little behind the scenes stuff up on there. And with that being said, thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next one.